for Schindler. Has a chance to write his name in Huddersfield Town legend. And he takes that chance!
Well, not much to talk about in this one. Just kidding. It's the warm-up episode 133. It's your host, Brady Frost. Tom Bradshaw joins me once again. Tom, how you doing?
I am okay, Brady. Yeah, some big news, wasn't there? Obviously, I'm sure everyone's listened to the pod from Monday night. So, yeah, a lot to talk about ahead of a big game.
Absolutely. We wouldn't have it any other way. And to talk about this big news, we're joined by Alex Miller, who's the Sheffield Wednesday writer for the Sheffield Star. Alex, thanks so much for joining us.
Absolute pleasure, guys. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, you man who probably has a foot in both camps. Obviously, you know Darren Moore. So we'll probably start there. But before we do, I've had this in my notes on my phone for about 3 weeks and I forgot to do it. But shout out to Simon, who I saw at Magic Rock after the Blackburn game. Said he'd listen to the pod, and I said I'd give him a shout out. So here you are, about 3 weeks too late. But that's the way you do it. You still get it. So let's move on. Because, lads, I know it's a crucial game, but we have to start by talking about Darren Moore's dismissal. Tom, we were saying before, the lads did a reaction last night, but we'll get our thoughts too, because who doesn't want to hear about another town manager getting sacked? But Alex, I'll come to you first. I mean, obviously, you know, it's not the team you cover, but you know Darren Moore during his time at Sheffield Wednesday. Are you surprised it's not worked out for him at Huddersfield?
Honestly, yes and no. I think you know, with the changes at Town and how they're going about things, it did feel like it would be a sink or swim sort of situation. Darren was obviously coming off great momentum and a pretty sour end to his time at Wednesday, having done fairly incredible things. I think, you know, what's forgotten in terms of the job that he did at Wednesday was just how much of a mess the club was in when he picked them up, and the turnaround that he did there, albeit in League One with one of the bigger budgets and players like Barry Bannon and Josh Windass operating in the third tier. And obviously the story is the nature of the promotion with the comeback and the last head of the game. That's not the expression, is it? But close enough. At Wembley to get up. So yeah, I think he's pretty well revered amongst Wednesday fans that probably see through some of the narrative that's been attempted to be spun in terms of how he left. In terms of Huddersfield, yeah, like I say, you know, it felt like a bold way of jumping in and going about it. I think a lot of people sort of from the outside appreciated the 3-year plan that I think your man Nagel had sort of spoken about, and to an extent, I think he was always fighting a bit of a losing battle with how popular Neil is down there. And I think Neil offered that security that, you know what, relegation probably wouldn't be a problem, and you can build towards something as and when the ownership and all the rest of it see fit. So yeah, I think I don't live in Sheffield. I'm not a million miles away. I'm up in Bradford, so I do know a few Huddersfield fans. And it did sort of feel quite early on that he was on a hiding to nothing, albeit the performances obviously weren't that inspiring.
Yeah, hard to disagree. I mean, Tom, we've spoken about it quite a lot on this podcast. We actually got teased that we were probably too kind on Darren Moore, but he has gone. What's your take on the news?
Well, yeah, Brady, you sent me that a screenshot of someone saying that about us, and I did send you a reply. I mean, you could drop that audio in now if you want, Brady, but there's literally the Ipswich game, so Darren Moore's second game preview. I pretty much word for word said how it was going to go, didn't I? And it's happened exactly like that. I think, as Alex has kind of just suggested, as soon as he came in, I think one thing we said on here was you follow him Warnock, so that's already going to be absolutely difficult. Fans, you've got to get off to a good start. And I think for me, it all comes down to that spell of games where we lost the 3 games by 4, conceding 4, including Leeds being 4-0 down at Leeds at half time. I think he lost a lot of fans that in that couple of games. It's a difficult one. I think the fans have almost got him gone here, in my opinion. I know that Kev and his team are quite keen on social media, and all you've seen the last few weeks is more out. I think it also a bit of the decision of he's got Wednesday coming up, his former team that he had success with like literally a few months ago. I think it's a bit of a tactical one as well. I mean, I think they obviously knew after these 4 games, we all said they were so important, and he's only got 3 points out of these 3 games. When look, I think it was a minimum of 7 points, to be honest, out of the 3. Given when you look at everyone else's records at the moment, and kind of, he just had to do something, because it just feels like if you're going to keep drawing, we were going to keep drawing all season, and that wasn't going to keep us up. But then I don't think recent performances were too bad, Brady. I think there was QPR on Sunday. I think there was a lot of positives there. But yeah, it's probably the right decision, I think.
Yeah. I mean, like I say, I'm sure listeners will kind of got all the news. I think it's just, I suppose people wanted, had made their minds up on Darren Moore. I think we've kind of talked about he did have a bad hand. I think following Neil Warnock can be in a complete contrast in terms of character. That's always a bit jarring as well. But it's probably the home games that has done it as well. Like, you talk about this run and how crucial it is, but I think that Plymouth game, yes, they didn't have a striker, and the Blackburn game, they had chances to win the game. QPR, they probably should have won the game, but they're fine if you isolate those matches. And there's caveats within that, but I suppose it's the body of work behind it in terms of, like you say, it's 3 wins in 22 games. That's not good enough. And I do feel, the most damning thing is between his first, this is a stat from Opta Joe, between his first game, which was the 25th of September, and his final game in charge of Huddersfield, only Rotherham won fewer games, and they're rock bottom. So, it's not good. We have some more questions about the next manager and who we think I should be able to talk about that. But, a difficult comparison, but I suppose the example you can look at is Jurgen Klopp's leaving Liverpool in the season. I think while that kind of feels, it obviously has the success to go with it, but it's about feeling connected and the fans uniting behind and having a cause. And I just think we never had that under Darren Moore. We did have that a little bit under Neil Warnock, and we'll come on to that. But the next manager does have to be someone the fans can get behind. And 6th manager in 18 months, the sign of a very well-run club. Anyway, let's talk. We'll have plenty of time to talk about that. Let's get into this game. So, Managerless Huddersfield Town, they do host Sheffield Wednesday in a Yorkshire derby. That is also a relegation 6-pointer. Terriers have, of course, ditched Darren Moore following that draw against fellow strugglers QPR, and Huddersfield now failed to win in the last 6. Meanwhile, Wednesday, they're in midweek action against Watford. It'll be tonight when this goes out, but they have lost their last 2 league games, but Danny Roll's side did win the previous League 2 before that. Obviously, we don't know about the Watford game, but should they win that game, Wednesday could go level on points with Town if they also win at the John Smiths. Tom, it's a huge game. It's also been thrown into chaos. How are you feeling about this one?
But yeah, it's a massive game, isn't it? I think the term 9-pointer was even used by James, so it is a massive one. And I think it's a big ask for John Worthington, but I think someone coming in who absolutely loves the club, has been around it for so many years now. He knows what it's about. He knows what a derby against Wednesday is like. He's scored and won in a derby against Wednesday before, so he'll be well up for it. And hopefully, the one thing I always hope when we kind of have these interim managers who are from the youth setup is, because they're always ex-players, etc., they're going to hopefully bring a bit of passion to the game and really G the players up. And I mean, that's my only hope for Saturday, Brady, is that we do see a bit more excitement and just a bit more fight there. But I can't say it's going to be a high scoring affair, to be honest.
No, certainly not. And I mean, Alex, obviously from the Sheffield Wednesday side, are you, would you say they're maybe more nervous about this game with a caretaker manager rather than Darren Moore because it's a bit of an unknown quantity?
I think so. I don't know what it is about Wednesday this year. I think I'm right in saying this will be the fourth time that they've come up against a caretaker manager or interim manager. And Danny Rule is very, very big on sort of his data and analytics and stuff. And he's admitted in press conferences that it does make things difficult for him to prepare and go about things how he usually would. So, there's some managers that perhaps would sort of downplay that sort of thing. But I think it is a genuine curveball for Wednesday to cope with. When it's happened previously, he's spoken about his approach being more based on Wednesday and their strengths in that scenario. Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think the bottom line is that Wednesday's away form hasn't been great. There's been some good results in there. They have a knack of outplaying some of the struggling sides sort of between the boxes. But the key moments have let them down. The old thing, sticking it in the onion bag and keeping out the other one. And that's cost Wednesday time and again, particularly under Danny. You do sort of wonder when Darren left if Danny had come in, which was possible. He was interviewed for the job in the summer. Where Wednesday would be now without the 12 matches of hell under Cisco Munoz. But yeah, shoulda, woulda, coulda, and all that sort of thing. But in terms of the match, yeah, it's going to be tight. I can foresee an absolute stinking draw. But if Wednesday can grapple hold of it early and get the ball moving, then certainly another relatively rare away win would do him well.
What I was worried about, Alex, when I looked at it, especially with Darren Moore at the helm potentially for the game, and it feels weird slating him because I think there's a lot of connotations about what went wrong for him. The injury list has been terrible. Obviously following Warnock, but it was just looking at I think the last four, is it 2 wins away from home in the last 4, but that include was it 1-0 away at Stoke,
yeah,
and a 1-0 at Preston, and those just stood out as like, well, if they can do that against Stoke and Preston away, who I'm not saying they're not in that kind of top 6 bracket this season. I feel like there's a top 6 and everyone else is on a pretty level-ish playing field this year. That worried me a bit, especially with how Darren would have set up. So I think maybe Worthington gives me a bit more confidence going into it. But I think Town fans have got to realise Wednesday are actually, like you say, you look at the stats with these last few games, and they're holding on to the ball well, aren't they? And like having a lot of possession and stuff. So it might be one of those where Town have to really think about how they're going to do that, because they're quite a pressing team now, Alex. You said.
Yeah, very much so. They sort of pick and choose the games. It's been really fascinating as a reporter who isn't perhaps as au fait with sort of the tactical analysis and that sort of thing as some of the guys on the circuit are. It's been absolutely fascinating watching, the subtle differences, some of the not so subtle differences in terms of how they're setting up. I mean, from the outside looking in, I've spoken to a few reporters sort of coming to the ground who sort of said, Danny's getting a lot of good press considering, he's still in the relegation zone, this, that and the other. He's just a very, very, very impressive figure. And, you look at where he's come from, where he's worked before, Bayern Munich, Germany, Southampton, Leipzig. I think he's destined for the top, and I think he's probably getting the best out of what is a relatively limited squad. The next few days are big if they can bring someone in time for that Town game. Certainly at the top end of the pitch, that could make a big difference, because as I've said, it's the key moments that have let them down. You know, the XG and all those sort of things that certain people turn their noses up to. They're all very encouraging in terms of Wednesday's upward curve, but they just need a little bit of help and some money spent in the next few days.
Yeah, and you obviously talked about Danny Rowe being impressive. I suppose Town fans are, they've got an eye on the next manager and hoping someone can have a similar impact to what Danny Rowe's had at Hillsborough. What has made him so impressive, and like what has he done? I know that's a big question, but I suppose it'd be really interesting to hear, because it does seem from the outside that he's really galvanised them.
Yeah, well, there are similarities in terms of the job that whoever it'll be will be picking up. In that the fan base and the club are probably in a bit of a gully in terms of momentum and spirit and all the rest of it. What Danny did very well was he was very impressive communicator straight from the off, despite being his second language. I think there was a buy-in in terms of his CV. Just about everyone that we spoke to, there was about a week's period where it was quite clear that Danny was going to be the manager, but they had to iron out certain bits and bobs along the way. So, Radio Sheffield and ourselves sort of speaking to a lot of people that had either worked with him or journalists that had covered his career. And it became clear pretty early on that this is a very impressive candidate and someone that actually Wednesday were really lucky to have, and there was the nervousness of, well, he's never been a manager before. No, but he's taken just about every training session at Bayern Munich for 18 months and, done the same thing in the Premier League and this, that and the other. So I think football's changing, isn't it? Certainly if you look in the Championship in terms of the profile of managers that are being chosen now, the shift towards analytics and sort of more progressive modern ways of doing things sort of does lend itself to managers that have done it the hard way and maybe got into the game a little bit earlier. That's not to say there isn't a place for a Neil Warnock, who I would have been more than happy getting the Wednesday job when Daddy came in, but they've obviously done it a different way, completely different way. Whether it's enough to stay up, I don't know. But if they can keep hold of Danny Rill, I've no doubt that he can sort of lay the foundations as anyone can reasonably be expected to do with the framework of how the clubs run.
I suppose that's my kind of final, grilling you a bit here, Alex. But I suppose my kind of final question on that is, you look at the owner of Wednesday, Chansiri. Do you think it seems to be going well? And you, like you say, you've lost Wednesday have lost the last 2 league games, but still that momentum which Town haven't had. Is the only thing stopping them the owner really? Do you see that potentially becoming a problem, or is it what's kind of the latest with that?
Yeah, I think everyone was looking at this window as a huge opportunity to make use of the contacts. I mean, the backroom staff that Danny's got, have worked at Manchester United, Arsenal. You've got Chris Powell in there, obviously with Spurs. There's contacts, and I think that can be overblown to a degree, as if recruitment's just a case of picking up the phone to your mate and taking one of the better players. But yeah, everyone was looking to this window as a big opportunity. They've got close and failed to get several deals over the line. I think that's endemic of the situation that Wednesday are in as a club. If you're a loanee looking at Wednesday from the outside looking in, really the thing that you'd be signing for is Danny Rill and his coaching staff, rather than there's a player went off to Sturm Graz to go and win a title and play in the Europa Conference League. Wednesday can't compete with that, however much of a big club with a history and all the rest of it that comes with it. So yeah, I don't know. I'm a bit conflated with. I think the chairman has sought to back Rill. There's an ongoing situation now with a 22-year-old American striker. We're led to believe there's a bid somewhere in the region of £2 million being put down. That's money that's not been spent at Wednesday for a very long time. So on that front, then certainly, I think there's been attempts made. The question mark is the fact that they haven't got these deals over the line. They got 2 deals done very early. That's not been followed through on, and we'll see over the next few days, won't we? What happens? He is a complex character, I would suggest, and that's coating it in quite a lot of sugar. Who can be difficult. Darren Moore, someone that's felt the acid tongue, if you like. Not dissimilar, perhaps, to the man running town in terms of how certain decisions, certain statements, things that are said can be disruptive. Where probably in their mind they're thinking, in terms of transparency and all the things that fans are asking for, but there's certainly a balance to strike there. And look, there are bigger stories with regard to the chairman that no doubt you and the listeners will have heard. That was a long night on Zoom, I can tell you that. Which are deeply concerning and certainly concern the fan base, and we'll see how the next few months go.
It's Quana's question. So I actually tweeted this before we knew Darren Moore was getting sacked. Again, I think it's just, you don't need to be a mind reader. I think Kevin Nagel kind of spelled that out for us. But we asked for this, who do you want as the next Huddersfield Town manager? I have to say, Tom, I think some of the shouts are ambitious, shall we say. But let's read some out. I'm going to ask yourself, Tom, as well. Alex, I appreciate it's not your the side you cover, but we'll see what you maybe think they need, or we'll tap into that. Let's read some out, Sally. So Bjorn Gambach, he says, if going for a safe choice, who knows the league, Michael Duff. If daring to gamble on a young, exciting manager to win League One, ? Mark Bonnet. Quite like that show. Arthur Difford says, tactically, I like Paul Heckingbottom. Not sure about Jones or Steve Cooper. Parker needs money. Looking to Europe, we've already signed 2 players from HJK and Groningen this month, a big risk. And Will HDFC, he has a 4-man shortlist in order of priority. Number 1 is Steve Cooper. Number 2 is Nathan Jones. Number 3 is John Eustace. And number 4 is Paul Heckingbottom. He says, although the dream is Rocket Ron and Warnock return. Tom, again, I was on Radio Leeds last night. I said something that I think may have upset Town fans, which was, I feel like we probably deserve to get relegated if you base us on the last 5 years minus that playoff final run. Steve Cooper will not be moving to Huddersfield Town. I could say that very, very confidently. That's an ambitious shout, as I say. I just don't see that happening. He's eyeing up the Palace job. It's the same as when I'm going to rip you here, Tom.
Yeah, I said Sean Dyche. I said we should get Sean Dyche. But if you don't have ambition, Brady, what's the point? Like, if Kevin Nagel really look, if you want to guarantee Huddersfield Town to have success, bloody hell, Steve Cooper is that man, isn't it? And I know it's stupidly ambitious, that, and I don't think it will happen, but I think, bloody hell, that really would show that. I don't think any fan, because there's still some fans who call Nagel and etc. But if he was able to manage to get someone like that in, bloody hell. Look, I've said him a couple of times, but he doesn't seem to be appearing anywhere. I think maybe we've got to be looking long term, really. I think whoever you get in is here, regardless of if we go down to next season. I really like Pete Wild at Barrow. I think he could do a really good job at Town. I think he's quite charismatic, and I think he'd get on really well with the fans. And that weirdly seems to be one of the more important things with Town fans than even the style of football at the moment. Like, if someone's a bit boring in the press conference, that's all that seems to be said. But it's probably going to be Heckingbottom, I think. I think it kind of lines up well. I think it's someone who, when you look at a realistic list of targets, is probably near the top of it. And I don't know if I just think it's too close to Moore for me. I think people will still moan about it. I don't think. I mean, apart from when he was moaning about VAR last season in the Premier League, whenever I've seen in other press conferences, and I'm just going off what Town fans have been moaning about at the moment. And I don't particularly remember watching any of his teams and thinking how super exciting football is. So they're kind of the top two concerns at the moment for Town fans, and I just feel like you're going to get much the same, especially till the end of the season if you bring in Heckenbottom. But could he keep us up? Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Alex, I suppose you've got the outside perspective on this. Like, what kind of, you don't have to give any names, but what type of manager do you think Town could do? Because from my perspective, I kind of look at what Wednesday have done and look at the teams around us like Plymouth, and maybe we do need a project. And if you go down, at least you can have someone who's cutting their teeth. What do you think they need?
I will give you a name. I think Michael Duff would be an outstanding appointment. Swansea went the way it did. It surprised a lot of people, certainly on the Wednesday patch, because we obviously not a million miles away from Barnsley, and Wednesday and Barnsley had the a good ding dong battle. Barnsley beat Wednesday twice last season, and then obviously the playoff final was what it was. And I think unanimously we were all really, really impressed with Michael Duff and how he went about things. I think the point there is a salient one about knowing League One as well, in case, and he certainly does that, and got to within 4 seconds of a penalty shootout to get into the Championship. So that for me would be the no-brainer. I'd like to know the reasons for not wanting Steve Cooper. That's a big bold shout. In terms of Hecky, I don't know. I think he might. He's not the most glamorous name, I think, because of his career as a player and maybe the journey that he's been on as a manager. But he is someone that's just taken a club into the Premier League, and I don't know if he might wait out for something else. As we know, the jobs do come up thick and fast, and he's been a part of the backroom staff with Wilder that got United promoted, and obviously that first season of success in the Premier League, and then did it himself as a manager. So, in the most respectful way possible, I don't know if he might be selling himself a little bit short by jumping straight into a relegation battle. But look, we'll see. I think we've spoken about the success in a lot of ways that Danny Röhl's brought, and with the new wave of how things are done in the Championship, it could be someone that you've never heard of that probably gets a negative response from some, as Danny did, but certainly can be quite exciting. And with what Kevin sort of said about wanting to build something out, I wouldn't be shocked with that at all.
Yeah, just to clarify, I would love Steve Cooper. You touched on. I just don't see this being an attractive job. We talked.
Oh no, I completely agree. I think it would be one hell of a shock, wouldn't it, for someone that's next job almost certainly will be in the Premier League with what he's achieved. It was just one of the messages there saying, I don't think Steve Cooper is the man. I think if I was a Huddersfield fan, I'd put him on my back and crawl to get into the club.
I think a lot of people will be with you. No, I suppose this is my concern. I say this, and obviously Wednesday's probably a good example, but I always say who it's in a similar way now. This is Huddersfield's sixth manager in 18 months. I don't think we're a particularly attractive proposition. I know we've got new ownership, and maybe they can point that a lot of those appointments weren't under previous man in charge. But I suppose it's the same with Wednesday. Normally I'm like, with the owner they have, who would want the job, and you continue to get quite, some work, some don't. So who knows really? I suppose I'm not convinced that Heckenbottom, like you said, Tom. I'm not sure he'd take it. I just don't think we're a particularly attractive proposition. And as you mentioned, he's not a personality that you can necessarily like get behind. And I think some of the criticism of him from Sheffield United fans I've seen is he doesn't really change it in game. He struggles with that. But we've just had a manager who also struggles with that. It's hard to say who I want, and to be honest, I'm glad I'm not the person making the decision, because I think it's a really tough one. But I'm leaning to like maybe it's good to go with a project, take a risk on it, and see. Because I think if you had someone who's full of passion, look at what's happening at Wednesday. Ian Foster at Plymouth, I think, is an interesting appointment. I think that's maybe the kind of road they need to go down, because I just don't. I think John Eustace would be okay, but I think would he take that? Could probably get a safer job. I don't think Nathan Jones. He's always linked with Town, but I just can't really see him taking this job. Not particularly want him after what he said about women and children in Huddersfield at that time as well. And let's be honest, we can swear on this podcast because he's a bit of a knob. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, but Brady, do you not think Jones would at least ignite a bit of something in this squad? That's my only thing with Nathan Jones. He might fall out with a lot of people, but I just feel like he went to Stoke, and I think those players were too big time for when he went there, and he failed. And then he goes to Luton, where it's a bit more down to earth, and he does well twice. Goes back there, does all right. Do you know what I mean? I feel like I don't particularly want him, but I actually don't think he'd do a terrible job with the kind of squad that we've got.
Yeah, I suppose Luton are a very well-run club, and you see what Rob Edwards has done.
Well, yeah.
And it's kind of the same with Plymouth. I know Stephen Schumacher's gone to Stoke, but I kind of feel like Ian Foster might be all right because they're a well-run club, and that's kind of the point you want Town to get to, where it's just you can change the manager, but it's still all pretty good behind the scenes. I don't know. This is such a niche reference, but do you know who Nathan Jones reminds me of? Do you remember when there was a Labour leadership candidate when Corbyn went up against that Owen Smith, and Owen Smith said, "Oh yeah, I'm a winner because there was only 2 girls in our school, and I fought off loads of lads to pull them all." That's kind of what Nathan Jones is like for me, just like
those vibes. Yeah,
those vibes. Yeah, but I suppose it's one of them, isn't it? Like you say, Tom, maybe he'd be the sort who fans would get behind. Classic, like everyone hates him unless he's part of your team. So who knows? I think it's an interesting one. Let's take a break now because we've kind of got a question following up to that. So yeah, while we have a little think about that, it is half time of this podcast. But as always, we're sponsored by Magic Rock Brewing. You can see the code if you're watching on YouTube below. It's AHTTC10. That will give you 10% off any online orders that you do at magicrockbrewing.com. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and talk more about Huddersfield Town. Okay, lads. So we kind of touched on it a little bit, but Huddersfield Town Academy manager John Worthington is going to take charge of this one against Wednesday. He's going to be assisted by B team coaches Kevin Russell and Matt Tong. Tom, what are your thoughts on this? Because I suppose you can look at it either way. If we're honest, Moore's been rumoured to be in hot water for the past couple of weeks. He's gone now. Are you disappointed there's not a new manager in place for this crucial game?
But see, this is why I think I was quite surprised. And when I was messaging James, I was like, I assumed he was going to be in charge potentially for the end of the season. Because we don't know what has gone on, do we? To be honest, Moore might have literally said after QPR, I don't think I can do it. It's just not working or whatever. He might, that kind of thing. So I don't think they obviously there will be plans. They'll have contingency. They'll have people on a list, but I don't think it was as certain as maybe people are thinking that if he didn't win at QPR, he wouldn't have been here. Like they had someone lined up. So, I mean, I'm not like some fans who are like, what is going on? How can you not have someone lined up like straight away? I think that's more weirder than anything. That say if they'd have sacked Moore and then Heckingbottom had been announced like straight away, because as bad as the kind of win ratio percentage had been, the performances were getting better, and we were still picking up points. I know the draws weren't good enough, but it wasn't like we were losing every week in these 23 games that he's been in charge, or whatever it is. So yeah, look, it needs a good think about it as well, doesn't it? As well, like they can't be rushing into it, and obviously I think you'll have a week now where Worthington has these next few days with the squad. I'm sure he'll just be concentrating on this game, and then hopefully in the background this week they're sorting it out, figuring out who they want, and it'll be done come the end of the weekend. I'd hope latest, Brady.
I mean, Alex, are the because fans were disappointed. There's going to be temporary charge for this one, with it being a huge game at the bottom. Do you think it's kind of to be expected? Like you say, you don't normally get an instant replacement, or do you think there's some logic in what some of the fan base is saying, that it seems a bit silly to not have someone installed and leave it to an unproven manager for what is a massive game at the bottom of the table?
Yeah, it's one of those. I think if the word had got out that they were lining up a new manager while Darren was still in situ, I think that would draw its own criticism. And I think with listening to what you guys are saying about the likelihood of the club wanting to put in a project and a long-term manager, you've got to get that right. You've got to have a full and thorough interview process, and that takes time. And we saw it at Wednesday. After Darren, I think it was 16 days. At a very, obviously it was in the summer, but a very vital time because of the time that had elapsed with the playoffs, and then Darren sticking around for 3 weeks before. It was right in the middle of a really important transfer window, and it set them back. So there's pros and cons to all of it. It is an important game, but if you brought in the man that you really wanted, how much is he going to be able to do in 3 days on the training ground? So the unknown nature of what Worthington might put together, it can work either way. I wouldn't be too concerned. My concern would be on the club, doing a really thorough job of making sure they get the right man in.
It's fair enough. And you touched on how Danny Roll, it's a bit more difficult when there is an unknown quantity in the dugout. It's hard to judge. I mean, from your perspective, would you be more concerned if Darren Moore was in the dugout, or do you think this caretaker actually makes it harder for Wednesday?
Yeah, I think so to a degree. I think with the pressure that Darren was under, you'd sort of look at a game. Was it now the Kirklees Stadium? Is that what we're calling it, or is it still the John Smiths or the Golf Farm? Or still the John Smiths. So you'd sort of look at a game up there and think, if you can really get a foothold in the game early, almost turns into a home game in terms of the impact that it has on the players. So that's now been taken away. I think Darren's approach, I always got on really well with Darren. I think he's a fabulous manager, and as I said, the job that he did at Wednesday was superb. And I think there would have been a good few places higher up the table had they kept hold of him. But he's no tactical genius, and I think there would have been a fair shout for Danny in terms of getting the best out of him on the day. But yeah, it's roll the dice time, see what happens, and there will be a spring in the step of some Huddersfield fans. It certainly does change the complexion of the match.
I mean, Tom, I've kind of asked you this, but there was a little debate that maybe did you keep Darren Moore for this one if someone wasn't lined up? But you seem quite happy that Worthington's going to have a go, like a Huddersfield player, big motivating the lads. Do you think there was an argument to keep Moore for this game, or do you think if he's not the man, he's not the man?
I don't know, Brady. I honestly don't know. I mean, there probably is an argument there, isn't there? I think the argument is it was the first time in a while, especially after QPR and Blackburn, where I've seen Town fans saying, well, I'm not saying all Town fans, but you saw the odd Town fan actually saying the performances have improved. And I guess that's the argument. But the problem is the performances were improving, but at the end of the day, we needed the points more than the performances. And I don't know what the coming around of Darren getting the sack has been, but obviously there must have been some mutual agreement or decision that, look, it was either you've got to beat Wednesday, and if you can't, then that's it. And then it's happened, hasn't it? I just on what we kind of were talking about, Brady, as well. Like, look, we said this as well at the start of the season, and when the appointment was made, we had a season set up with Warnock and Jepson of potential stability, really, and a season for the people, the brand new owners and his brand new team who, let's be frank, other than Cartwright, who has experience in this league before, Jake Edwards has been in a completely different continent doing football. It makes a massive difference. There's a different culture over there. There's a different atmosphere and everything. It was such a massive decision to kind of give Darren Moore the job when you had Warnock kind of in the driving seat for potentially the whole season. So this next appointment, it just, for me, I don't care if this next appointment comes in and we don't win for the rest of the season. I think they should still be in charge if we go down. We need some stability. We need some identity. Even if I know, whatever, it'll be boring football, but I just want I just want a bit of stability. I'd clip this, Brad. I'd actually wouldn't have cared if Darren Moore would have stayed for the rest of the season and we'd have went down. But I'd have been happy that the club have backed someone, and we're hoping that the stability and maybe the results would have started to come.
I think it just makes that Warnock decision look sillier the longer it goes on, doesn't it? Because they did it from a position of strength. But we were only a few points outside the relegation zone, and come the end of January, we're a few points outside of the relegation zone, and looking like we could get sucked in. So, yeah, it's just I don't know. I'm a bit fed up with it, Tom. If I'm honest, I just want some, like you say, mid-table mediocrity or something like that. Will never happen. But I suppose I'd ask you. We don't know how John Worthington's going to set up with this one. But what do you want to see from this game?
I just want. I feel like we've seen this team perform in a certain way that looks like it can punish teams, and it's using the width and using the flanks and getting people in the box and getting balls in the box. One of Darren Moore's best games was that Ipswich home game for 80 minutes. That's all we did. We were a better team than Ipswich for 80 minutes. And that kind of sums it up. There's so many games where we've actually been leading and we've ended up drawing. And I think Jerry said it on the main pod last night. You change a couple of those, not even that, probably 2 or 3. If they turn into wins, then Darren Moore's still here. People might be moaning, but Darren Moore's still in a job. He's probably in job to the end of the season, to be honest. So I just want to see that. I just want to see kind of using what we've got out wide, and now with Healy and Radders up front, I think you can be getting it in the mixer and hopefully causing that Wednesday defence a bit of trouble. Hopefully Hellick is all right and he's fit for the game. Because I just look at the likes of, it just feels like Josh Windass is going to come and score, doesn't it? Kind of thing. It's like classic. It would be classic against Town. And then Bailey Cadamarchi, his dad, former Town legend, I'd call him. I love Danny. He was brilliant at Town. But he seems to be doing all right, Alex, doesn't he? He's on a bit of form.
Yeah, it's been a long time since anyone came through the academy, and there's been players that have sort of had a dip at it, but really had a sustained go, and the club give them a new contract as well before Christmas, I think. And yeah, he's been brilliant. Things have dried up a little bit in terms of goals, but you'd sort of expect that it wasn't going to be some Michael Owen meteoric rise to the England squad. These things have a way of sort of peaking and troughing, but yeah, he's been excellent. It's the way that Danny wants to play. Wednesday came up with a strike force that probably wasn't as close to what Danny Real wanted in terms of pressing and all that sort of stuff. You've got Michael Smith and Lee Gregory, a little bit older and sort of more in the target man mould that you'll have seen Darren sort of preferred. So yeah, Bailey's just been really important, and Danny's around Sheffield. He's coaching in the United Academy, so that's probably an interesting dynamic there.
Yeah,
what they talk about around the dinner table. It's mad. You see, Wednesdays he's big. He's probably 6'1" or something. Bailey. You see Wednesday sort of strapping centre forward, and Danny's posting pictures of him in the back of a car with his seatbelt on a family trip down to London and all this sort of stuff. So it's surreal. It makes me start to feel very old.
No, it's fair. I suppose I asked Tom about what he wants to see from Town, but Alex, what can we expect? What can Town fans expect to see from Sheffield Wednesday this Saturday?
I think Wednesday will look to put Town under pressure early. The pressing game could go one of two ways, because if Town just go, right, we're just going to be sort of quite basic in how we're going to just take that out of the game. So that'll be interesting. If Wednesday can get hold of the ball, like I say, they've dominated teams that frankly are better than them. If you look at the league table and probably the profile of players that they've got. So if they can do that, if they can get an early goal, then hopefully Wednesday could get a very important win from my point of view. As I've said a couple of times, equally, I could see an absolute stinking 0-0, and for us to all go home pretty disappointed. I don't think a draw does a great deal for either team, does it?
No, it's probably best if we do come on to our match predictions. Alex, you talked a few results, but I'm going to make you nail the colours to a mast. What score prediction are you going for?
I will go for a 2-0 Wednesday win. I think if they can get one early, I think they can get control of the game even away from home. And I think the man that I would pin the result on is one that Tom mentioned, Josh Windass, he's had a bit of time off. He's hoping to come back in fresh, and he might well just have a little point to prove in matches against Huddersfield.
Yep, we're used to that, aren't we, Tommy?
yeah.
Fair enough. Tom, what about yourself? What are you going for in this one?
I think with Moore, I'd have gone for another draw. And I know a draw doesn't help the thing with this QPR and the Wednesday one, I did kind of think I thought you beat Blackburn and Plymouth, that'd be brilliant, and then you didn't lose QPR on Wednesday because they wouldn't have just made any ground potentially on you in that game week. But obviously we're down to this. I think it's more of a must win for Wednesday, especially depending on the Watford game. We'll see. If they beat Watford tonight, is it tonight that, Alex? Tuesday night, or is it Wednesday?
Wednesday night.
Wednesday night. If they beat Watford Wednesday night, then I think it becomes a bit of a must win for both teams, to be honest. I think that gap's too close then, and I feel like this Town squad are in a proper funk of just all we do is draw, and if that kind of continues for the rest of the season, then that is relegation form. But I'm gonna be positive. I'm gonna be positive, and one of my favourite ever Town players is in charge. But the last time my favourite ever Town player was in charge, he had a worse win rate percentage than Darren Moore. So I'm gonna go with a John Worthington 1-0 win, and we'll go with a goal from Radders on his first home appearance.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'd like to see that. I'm not normally negative, but I've just there's been this just feels like deja vu, like last season, Tom, and when we should have beat QPR and Blackpool under Fotheringham, and then we got rid of Fotheringham, and it was like, oh well, Chicho's in charge, caretaker, playing Wigan, was it? I believe.
Yeah, Wigan away, wasn't it?
Wigan away.
Jesus.
We were having to see a response, and we were dreadful and lost 1-0, and I just think that's going to happen. It's funny how football always goes in cycles. I just can see us losing 1-0 because I do think Wednesday, like you touched on it there, Alex, they're very good until you get to the boxes, and I just think Town aren't very good anyway at the moment. So I can just. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just picturing I can already see the Huddersfield Town hashtag at full time, Tom, and just the front. I can already see it. So yeah, I don't normally back it, but yeah, I can kind of see us losing this one. So nice cheery end to the.
Yeah, lovely. Cheers, Brady.
That's all right. What can I say? I love to lift people's spirits. We did have a few mailbag questions. However, they were before Darren Moore got sacked, so they're not quite right. But we have really enjoyed them, so do keep them coming because we enjoy asking you questions. That breakfast one particularly brought quite a lot of joy to the listeners, although they didn't like my AI image where, not that I asked to request it, but it did put peas in full English.
Yeah.
Can't blame the machines.
Yeah.
We will leave it there. So thanks to Alex for joining us. Tom, thanks for joining me as always. Thanks to you, listener, for tuning in. And thanks to Magic Rock, who sponsored this episode. Tom and I will be back to preview the next game. If there's any news on the new manager, you may see a podcast come out between now and then, so keep your eyes out peeled for that. And if there's any interesting signings between now and the deadline, maybe there will be another pod there too. But we'll leave it there for now. It's tough for now, and up the Town.